Slate, Jim, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Where'd it go?
One last thing. All right, that's fine, you can read it. Okay.
Jeff Beck.
Okay, Jim,
Steve, you've influenced so many players over the years, but a lot of the folks don't even know your name, really, because you spent so much of that time in the studio backing up other people, Sam and Dave's and Otis Reddings and on up through the Blues Brothers and so on. What's it like being a rock and roll player who spent so much time in the studios?
Well, it's a great experience. I mean, at least the experience I've had, and being able to work with so many people, you know, so many talented people, different people. To me, has always been more exciting than sort of being, you know, the self-centered person out front, you know, being the center of attention all the time.
Is the pressure off of you that much?
Well, I really didn't look at it as pressure because, you know, we had that escape in terms of performing through Booker T and EMGs. I mean, even though we did it as a four-man group, we were out there equally, you know, center stage, so to speak. So we got that release. So there was no pressure by it. I just really felt more comfortable, more creative to be in the studio working, and my whole, I think, career was based on creating songs and creating hit records. I like to do all of it. You know, I really enjoy playing for people. I love performing. You know.
Hypothetically, what's an average week for a rock and roll session player?
Well, it's not as heavy now as it was years ago, but in the days of where, you know, I guess my career really got started, we had 17 artists on the roster. We literally cut 3 and 4 artists a week at times. We cut sessions 6 days a week, and sometimes we do extra stuff on Sundays. And I remember there was a period there for at least a year or two that I spent about 15 hours a day, if not more, in the studio. So, but it didn't really seem like a workload. I mean, it was just either the excitement of it or the love of it or something, the dedication of it. I mean, there was work, there was pressure, things had to be done, you know, there were time schedules for releases and so forth. And it was really, that was a pretty big roster for such a small operation. We had basically 7 producers for those 17 artists.
This was at Stax?
Yeah. So we were sort of running into each other, you know, Keystone Cops at the time. And it really got spread so thin that there was a point there where we all couldn't be on the same date at the same time. I mean, different times we'd have to drop out.
How many albums do you think you've been on altogether?
Oh, I have no idea. I really don't. Somebody ought to figure that out. I'm sure sales have been well in the hundreds of millions, you know. There's no telling.
Yeah, your solos have been heard all over the world.
Yeah.
Easily. You're probably among the people who approach guitar less electronically than anybody else. Your gear is always pretty simple.
Well, yeah, I keep it simple, and my approach towards music is really a vocal approach rather than an artistic approach, you know. My attitude is not trying to see how much I can get out of the guitar, it's what I can get it to say. And that's why I've always just maintained that real simple formula. You know.
You've influenced so many people, but who has influenced you over the years?
Oh boy. I like all kinds of music. I guess anybody that was good, you know, you pick up a little here and a little
when you
there.
were first starting, do you remember?
The thing was, I really didn't spend time, or didn't really have time to spend, to sit down and learn other people's licks and things. And there's a lot of great guitar players out there that literally did their homework. They went and studied. They listened to records and they learned all these licks and stuff. And you know, a lot of guitar players were forced to, you know, they worked in clubs and they were forced to play other people's songs, so they had to go learn these things. Well, I really didn't have to do that. I mean, I didn't have time, number one.
Did you listen to
So
players
I didn't
as
have
a child?
vocabulary of all of the hits. All I really had was the things that we did in the studio. And the funny thing about that, by the time some of these songs that we all know now to be so-called classics, the ones we remember, like Midnight Hour and Soul Man and all these sort of things, when they hit, when they peaked, when they were up there in the top 5 and #1 and all that, well, we'd already cut probably 100 songs by that time. So we really didn't get to enjoy, you know, the good times of having hits, the excitement of wow, we got a hit record. We were so busy and ahead of ourselves, you know. And it's in the last few years where I've really been able to enjoy those times. The thing that we did with the Blues Brothers, being able to come back after all those years and play those same songs with the same arrangements was just a kick, because we didn't get to do it then very much.
Why did you go to guitar in the first place? Why that instrument?
It just came natural. I was just attracted to it. When I was in grade school or high school, there was a guy there named Ed Bruce. He's a pretty famous country artist right now down in Nashville. He's out of Memphis, Tennessee also. And we had, like every school did, they called them chapel programs where they'd have talent day and all that, and he played guitar and sang, and it just fascinated me. And because I really didn't have anybody in my family that was musical or anything. And I had an uncle that played a little piano and fiddle and all that, but I just was fascinated by it. And I went backstage one day and I said, boy, you know, I'd love to be able to do that. And he said, well, there's only one way to do it. You get yourself a guitar and you learn, you know. So that's what I did. And believe it or not, what?
Could you ask that question again? Because we had a bad jingling of keys in the audio, so...
You had a telephone going.
Telephone.
Yeah. Where you want me to start at?
Again.
Oh, you mean taking it off the hook doesn't?
That didn't do it either.
I'm going to start rolling this countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, speed.
Steve, why guitar? Of all the instruments, why that one?
Well, I just kind of came by naturally. When I was in high school, there was a guy there named Ed Bruce, who's now a fairly famous country artist, very successful. And he would play talent day with what we call chapel programs, you know, where once every, I guess once a month on a Friday morning we'd all go down and the class and they'd have talent day, which I later got to perform on at one time, and I got to sing for the first time, and I think I did "Oh Little Star" and I cracked. I know, I'll never forget it. The whole class laughed at me. But anyway, back to the guitar. Ed played guitar and sang, and I was just fascinated by that. And I think you'd asked me earlier, you know, about guitar influences. He played the song "Bo Diddley" by Bo Diddley, and that just blew me away. I said, "This is it. You know, this is the kind of music I like." So I went backstage one day and I said, "You know, it's really neat. I'd like to learn how to do that." And he said, "Well, there's only one way to do it." He said, "You got to get a guitar and learn how to play it." And what I did, I don't know if it means anything to anybody, but to me it means something. I went down and I set bowling pins for 10 cents a game, and saved, I think it was about $19 and got me a Sears and Roebuck mail order guitar. I think the $17.95 model or whatever it was.
Silver tone?
Yeah. Old Sunburst. So.
Did you take lessons?
Well, a little bit. I kind of cheated on mine. I had a real good friend who was taking lessons. So I'd meet him over at his house after he'd get through with his lesson. He'd show me what he learned that day. So I kind of got mine free.
You became, through the Stax sessions, a man, as a young white guy out of Memphis. You were on so many black soul albums. I mean, you became one of the great soloists on black albums. How did you and the blues and black funk get together?
It just sort of happened. I mean, it wasn't anything that was planned. It was the style of music that I like to play, and it just seemed to fit that era of music. And it was a music that we were calling R&B. It wasn't blues and it wasn't rock and roll. They called it rhythm and blues. And I think what that comes from, really my interpretation of it was more danceable music. And the lyrics and the songs were less about down times and sad times and I ain't got a penny and da-da-da-da-da. It was more happy. This woman is my life. This is love. This is fun. This is a kick, you know. And the songs were just more up. And it just seemed to fit. I kind of think I got a little bit of a country kind of style to it, sort of laid back, slow, you know, kind of simple. But it seemed to work with that style of music.